Agenda item 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillors Coe, Cox, Powell, Lung and Hone.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Just to comment on that point, Chair, that there is a dispensation in place to allow members to take part in this debate in place at Council in March.
I call on
Certainly can, Chair. Thank you. I don't intend to talk too long on this paper. No doubt there'll be some interesting debate that follows. I think we've all been fully aware of what the proposals are the whole way through. I hope that we have been able to work collegiately across this chamber as we come together to attempt to put forward the very best option to government that we possibly can. I should say, I don't think anyone in this chamber, although I stand to be corrected in the debate, actively sought out local government reorganisation. We do think that district tiers work very well in Staffordshire. That's not true everywhere in the country. Some councils have actively sought out unitarisation to address specific local challenges. However, I don't think that's true here in Staffordshire. We've got a very good track record, and I say that irrespective of political party, but a very good track record of delivering for our residents here, particularly in the Lichfield district. However, the government have asked us to put forward proposals. We have, I believe, put our best foot forward in ensuring that we put forward the very best proposal that not works for specific political parties, but works for our residents across the. I know, I'm sure that political parties have been hard at work in the background, attempting to ensure that local government reorganisation benefits specific political parties. I'm also sure that in this chamber we have rebuffed those advances from our respective political parties and have ensured that our residents are put first in anything we're doing here to ensure that local government continues to be local focuses. And at this point, I think I would like to put on record my thanks for our officers who have worked tirelessly for the last, I think, 6 months, perhaps even longer, probably a year, pulling together what is an incredibly complex piece of work, and have gone to the ends of the earth to ensure that the data that underpins the submission is robust and will stand up to scrutiny. So to every single officer who's put their heart and soul and burnt the candle at both ends over the last month, thank you. Thank you for your diligence and your hard work in bringing this proposal forward. We, I believe, have put forward in this paper the very best option that will work for the residents of Lichfield district. It is a proposal that is financially viable. So it creates a set of councils across Staffordshire that are able to withstand financial shocks, that will be financially viable in the future. And I'm glad that we've been able to commission the expert advice of KPMG, collaboratively working with 6 or 5 other district boroughs in the south of the county to ensure that we have a shared data set, that whilst we might have slightly different views of what local government would look like, actually those proposals are all based on the same data set, which is going to be incredibly helpful to government when they're attempting to review the proposals that have been put forward. So the proposal that we're putting forward is financially viable. It also, so once we've met that threshold and met that test of financial viability, we then turn to the impact that it'll have on our communities. And for me, that's the most important thing here. Yes, we can seek to drive out efficiency, I personally think that anybody who tells us specific numbers that we're going to save over the coming years has got a far better crystal ball than I do. And I think if you look at other areas that have unitarised, perhaps some of those savings haven't come to fruition, perhaps quite as quickly as those councils might have hoped. And I'm sure the same will be here. However, we have turned to, well, what impact would this have on our? I strongly believe that local government should remain local and should remain in communities that are meaningful to our residents. And that's not just a sort of a motherhood and apple pie type warm fuzzy feeling. Actually, it really does matter when people go to the ballot box. They want to know who they're voting for, what area they represent, what powers they've got, and more importantly, how they can get rid of them when they're making decisions that they don't like. That is an incredibly important aspect of local democracy. The further and further away from our communities that local government moves, the more difficult it is to ensure that we actually represent and serve those. So I believe this proposal that we're putting forward does reflect our communities and keeps local government local. I think finally, this one thing that really sort of warms my heart about this is that it has got support. It's got cross-party support. It's got support of MPs. It's got support of businesses. It's got support of our residents. It's got support of councils. It's got the support of all of the different groups that we've spoken to. Overwhelmingly backed the proposal for the 3x3, the 3 lots of across Staffordshire. And that's really heartening to see that people in our community, businesses or residents, MPs or parish council, all recognise how important this is and the sense that we're speaking in forward with this proposal. There are, of course, 2 other main options that have been put forward or are likely to be put forward to government. One of those sees the county split north and south. One sees that split east and west. I think splitting it north and south is problematic. I think it's such a large southern unitary, 650,000 people, stretching Inver to Leek and Tamworth to Shropshire. It's a large area. It would become one of the biggest councils in the country, and it would be over a huge geographical area as well. I think that'd be terribly challenging for any local government to deliver the services it needs to. The east-west split, again, I think comes with its own set of challenges. And I hate to go to Stoke first, but I will. Stoke naturally brings some inherent challenges with it, and that's not because we don't like Stoke. We love Stoke. However, I don't believe that Lichfield residents share any economic, cultural, historical, community ties with Stoke, and we wish Stoke the very best in the future. But I don't think anybody sat in this chamber here this evening would imagine that being tied into a unitary authority with them would be in the best interest of our residents. So the option that's in front of us this evening, and the one which I'm recommending to full council that we submit to government, is a 3 unitary model for Staffordshire. That, I believe, gives us the very best chance of continuing to serve our residents whilst also meeting the government criteria of having a financially viable and financially resilient local authority. And Chair, the formal recommendation that I'm putting forward tonight is that Council endorses the preferred option, a 3 unitary model to cover Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent, as set out in the full submission document in Appendix 1. And secondly, that Council recommends to Cabinet that it submit this preferred option to Government by the 28th of November 2025 deadline. Chairman, I'm really looking forward to debate this evening. I'm aware that not all authorities have encouraged a debate by full council. I'm really proud that this evening we have. I think it's very important that we debate this. I didn't think it was right that it was reserved just to Cabinet debate. We're looking forward to the debate this evening and seeing what my colleagues have this evening. And I'd so move that recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cullen. Is the proposal second? Councillor Wood.
Thanks, Chair. I have pleasure in seconding this proposal, seconding the recommendations. The Councillor Pullen has just outlined, and I'd add to that if Councillor Pullen would agree that we do this via a named vote at the end. I think the work that he personally has done, as well as the Chief Executive, the Chief Operating Officer, Chief Finance Officer and others, has been absolutely first class. And we have a document in front of us that's both comprehensive in terms of looking at all of the factors of local government reorganisation, but also comprehensible so that our residents can go to it, look at it, check against progress and so on. So I really commend the document and thank the officers involved. Can I just respond to one or two misunderstandings that may be floating around? The leader referred to the two-tier system working well here. Well, having been a member of this council and Staffordshire County Council under Labour control, Conservative control, and now, of course, the County Council under Reform control, I have a different view. I don't think it is working particularly well. And even as a lead member at the County Council, I found it very difficult to get really sort of local understanding and local engagement to happen. So I welcome this local government reorganisation as an opportunity. People have also said that it was not in the manifesto. And I was surprised. I was surprised too when this proposal came forward in December last year. But having looked at this carefully, it does seem that it was flagged up there through the commitments of government to devolution and community empowerment. And the local government reorganisation, I think, is a key prerequisite of that devolution deal, which we all hope to see will bring additional investment to Staffordshire. It was in the general election manifesto, if you look carefully. But it's just going through Parliament now, the devolution and community empowerment bill, and that will transfer significant powers, not just to the unitary authorities that are going to be created, but also to communities, and particularly to parish councils, about which I am passionate, as people know here. So I think it's a real opportunity. I was talking to our MP a week or so ago about the local government reorganisation proposals, and he said to me, I'm excited about this. And I said, well, that's strange, because I just said to the CEO that I'm excited about the opportunities as well. And I think, you know, if we grasp this opportunity, there are real benefits. I noticed today the new chair of the District Councils Network, the District Councils Network, as you can imagine, they're not turkeys voting for Christmas. They haven't been very supportive of the loss of district councils and haven't been very keen on local government reorganisation. But this letter came today, and the new chair, Councillor Richard Wright, said, while many of us have legitimate concerns, reorganisation is an opportunity to bring about positive change. So let us grasp the opportunity offered by reorganisation with confidence and ambition. And I'm happy to support a document that does show confidence and ambition. Just on some of the details, if I just refer to page 22 of Appendix 1, which is part of the summary document, the options appraisal summary, I think it gives compelling reasons why Lichfield District Council's proposal should be the one that holds sway when government comes to make their decision. Excuse me. And on page 24, you'll see a comparison of the various options that are being promoted. And the east-west option is the second worst of those options in terms of the assessments that have been made. And there's no relation, as the leader said, no relation in terms of the economic geography, the travel to work areas, the social geography. There's no correlation between the north of the county, much as we love them, and the south of the county. And just another misunderstanding around Stoke. Yes, Stoke has had its financial difficulties, but they pale into comparison with those of Surrey, whose reorganisation was recently announced just last week, was it just end of last week, where Woking Borough Council is in debt for something like £2 billion because of their development proposals. We're nowhere near, and Stoke is nowhere near that sort of level. Clearly, this is not going to please everyone, but I think the leader is focused on addressing local needs, and that, to me, is the most interesting part of the document. And if we look together at criterion 4 on page 90, people want local needs to be addressed. They want to keep their services based on local needs. 73.1% support was given to our proposals in the survey. Local needs and local issues are the most pertinent for our residents, and I think we'd be letting our residents down if we didn't all support this proposal. As I say, no one's going to be entirely pleased by any of the proposals going forward, but I'm certainly very happy to second this one. I'm grateful to the leader and the chief executive for keeping me as the opposition leader in the loop throughout the discussion from last December right until now. Chair.
Councillor,
Thank you, Chair. I was going to start by saying that I think, as Councillor Pullen said, overall, this is not a policy that I would support. It's disruptive, it's not a priority in a time when the country faces enormous challenges, but it's going ahead. And our priority is to get the best for our residents and also for the whole of Staffordshire, and for the best of our residents here in Lichfield District and the whole of Staffordshire. And in our view, the Free Unity proposal achieves that, and we support that. I also want to put on record the thanks to the officers and the chief executive for the professional and detailed work that's been done here. A lot's been done with the surveys, numerous meetings. The presentation doc is highly professional. So thank you. That represents our district in a very professional way. So we support the proposal for just to sort of mention 3 reasons. One, it keeps, as Councillor Woodward was saying, that representation local. Councils, when they are local, they make the best decisions because they understand their community. It's financially viable, and also it reflects the south-north split, reflects the economy and the geography of and the makeup of our county, whether it's workflows here in the south to the West Midlands, whether it's in the north to Stoke-on-Trent or to the Manchester conurbation. Public bodies, the relationships with councils in the south are different relationships when it comes to hospitals, colleges, foundation trusts, to those in the north of the county. And the east-west split just doesn't make sense, and it just does not reflect how our county actually operates. Turning to the strategic authority, I just wanted to make a comment on that. So what's proposed is a strategic authority for Staffordshire, and we support that in principle, but we have before supported the original support for a strategic authority of the West Midlands Combined Authority, due to the economic connection of our district with the West Midlands. Employment flows and into the West WMCA area. All we'd ask is that that the dialogue is maintained with the West Midlands Combined Authority so that we can improve those links. I think I've still got everybody, just about. Apart from, this proposal is powerful. It works. And I just want to make 2 final comments. One, I think it's important to note that Stoke-on-Trent, the leader of Stoke-on-Trent, supports this. So this isn't just a proposal with Lichfield District in mind, but the letter in the pack references that the preference for a 2 unitary authority solution, but would be supportive of a 3 unitary authority solution. So I think that is important to recognise. And then that local connection point is so important. Local authorities, councils, aren't just organisations that can be based anywhere. They need to be based in the community which they serve, and then that closeness and that understanding the community leads to best delivery. And this is what this proposal achieves in our view for our residents and actually for the whole of Staffordshire. And I urge all councillors to support.
Yeah, that one.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'll try not to repeat anything that's been said. I think it's an excellent report, and this shows why the Labour, the government's manifesto, when they're elected. Sorry, you. Oh, I thought you were pointing. Okay, thank you. To move power out of Westminster to the regions and then down to communities. And I think that is really important. All over Europe, in Germany, the local regions have tremendous power. Even in centralised France, they have more devolved power than we do here. And I think that's a really important move. In order to get there, Staffordshire County Council is going to have to be changed, because there's going to have to be strategic authority for at least Staffordshire and Stoke, if not somewhere else, so that's going to change. And actually, why locally do we need to have things like children's SEN, elderly social care determined in such a big area? Why isn't it determined more locally? Which I think really brings me on to one of the main points I wanted to make. I've heard people in here and outside say that getting rid of Lichfield is getting rid of the local decision making. Whereas actually, and I had a look at this the other day, in Lichfield City, and it's very similar across the rest of the district, for every £1 we pay in council tax, 71.3 pence goes to Staffordshire County Council, 16.6 pence goes to the fire and police, and only 8.7 pence comes to Lichfield District Council. Having an authority which covers the three that we're talking about will bring decision making of priority and money much closer to the people. It will also, of course, with what I'd like to see, the devolved regional mayor and strategic authority, it will simplify it. People will know their council services, they go to the unity council. For strategic things, the mayor is in charge. People will understand it. They'll know which officers or councillors to go to for which services. So I do think it is, and like Sue, I think it's quite exciting. It won't happen straight away. If we have a mayor like Andy Burnham, who is fighting for us in Staffordshire to central government, who in the future might get certain aspects of the NHS and other government services devolved, that's something that will benefit people in Lichfield. And this unitary council is a stepping stone to there, and it will devolve power from the county council to a more local authority.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening to you all. What I find interesting is the CCN, the DCN, the LGA, and the PwC all said the same thing, that any unitary authority with a population in and around the 300,000 or less will never pay back the full cost of the transition, wouldn't you believe? So quite frankly, the Tories have not stepped out into the playground and into the boardroom with their proposal. Add to that, the unitary authority in and around the 300k threshold will never be financially sustainable. So basically, you'd be bankrupt from day one of this proposal. This has been clarified from multiple official statements and briefings. Now let's talk about the legacy of Staffordshire. As you know, Staffordshire alone around for a good 1,000 years, more or less. So it's more vital to protect cultural treasures after local government reorganisation and so forth. I'm not here to play short-term politics or chasing headlines. I'm here to make sure whatever decisions we're now taking sustainably, financially, structurally and practicality for the next generation or so. Because for the next 50 years, I'm more or less going to be around feeling the full effects of what LGR will have on Lichfield as a whole. So I'll ask you directly, Councillor Puddin, have you got genuine concern? Have you genuinely considered the facts I've laid out, or is this another political game to stay relevant for a year or two? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I don't know if anybody saw the last night of the proms that I always watch it for the European flags that are there in great number. But I was astonished to find that Bohemian Rhapsody, which was on the performance, it's come down over the years, was only 50 years old, or was as much as 50 years old, which is only a year after the existence of Lichfield District Council, because the reorganisation that we had only 50 years ago for somebody of my age in 1974. And then, of course, it was the abolishment of the Lichfield Rural District Council and the rise of Lichfield District and other places. I actually read the minutes. The minutes probably no longer there, but they used to be down in the cellar here. So I read the minutes of the very first meetings of the district council. It's interesting to see comrades there putting the case forward for their own areas at the time. But they moved on, got on with it, and worked with the new council. Of course, we must forget that the West Midlands County Council was abolished, and the general GLC was abolished 12 years later because they were created in 1974. And in fact, I became a county council in 1999, and I was amazed at the empty benches at the county council chamber, which was because the Stoke-on-Trent had become a unitary authority. All these empty seats there, although they were saying goodbye to us in the chamber. Also, I'm aware that in July 1930, in the House of Lords, there was a debate there because there was a protest from Newcastle under Lyme saying they didn't want anything to do with Stoke. Now, when I first went there, I used to do the potteries in the 70s, and there's Newcastle, there's Stoke, you can never work it out. Obviously, I did come to understand that they thought there was a difference, but you know, I say these arguments have been going on for some time. I welcome the change. I welcome devolution. I welcome the opportunities of a unitary authority. When I was a county council, I agreed that it ought to be abolished at the time. So I haven't really changed my mind. And in fact, in the late 80s, there's a proposal for North Warwickshire, Nuneaton and Bedworth and Rugby to join together, which was changed at the last minute, which meant that I had to break down. So I would be voting against the Labour group at that particular time, which was a change by the leader, not really democratically done by the group. Again, there's nothing new here. Now they've got the whole of the county, Warwickshire County, so that was a mistake. If we're talking about Staffordshire, then of course Wolverhampton used to be in Staffordshire and elsewhere, and Birmingham was in Warwickshire. So, you know, things have changed in the 1,000 years that have been referred to. But we'll have the opportunity to have local area committees within a new unitary authority. And in fact, we did have area committees, would you believe, on Lichfield District, although it was stopped after a few years. So Birkdale is saying local matters, and that can happen again. Of course, we've got the strength of parish councils, which I think is a great opportunity still. I've actually, and others in this room, have interviewed many potential Labour candidates for council seats throughout the West Midlands over the years. And what's always been surprising is whether in Walsall, Wolverhampton or Sandwell, they all talk about their own local area. So there's still councillors for their own local area and feel very strongly for that, even though they're in a larger authority. I don't know how many watched the cabinet meeting today at Staffordshire, but it's definitely worth watching. I mean, the deputy leader referred to wards, not divisions, and referred to civil servants instead of local government officers. So, although he's been there a while, he still hasn't got a clue about local government. In fact, I got the impression that PricewaterhouseCoopers ought to be running the county council. I think he was talking more about their views than the views that we have in our documents and the evidence that we've produced, because ours is a lot of it, it's got finances and all that. It's all there for you to see. It's also community-based. That was missing from the deputy leader's comments and the other members of the cabinet there. I found that quite an eye-opener. We shouldn't just talk about figures, we should talk about communities. I do believe that we'll still have strong communities following this, so I do support it. The strength is in the parish councils, and that we have more efficient local government structures with support from the residents, and it's our job as local councillors to support residents in that and speak up for them. So I haven't got a problem with local government reorganisation. It's been around so many times in my relatively short lifetime. I do believe I'm optimistic on that. We have some great local government officers in local government at the county as well as in the districts, and there's an opportunity here to make it work along with the devolution which has been promised. And I hope we'll make sure that we hold the local government to account on that one. So my support for Councillor. Oh, by the way, Councillor Pullen was really slagged off really by the deputy leader. I think they ought to watch that if he didn't pick that up. I think they were jealous of our documents. They're so easy to read, get the message across. I think that's what really upset them.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to echo the congratulations given to the officers for their very comprehensive and, I may say, highly persuasive proposal. And I'm very pleased to see the emphasis placed on the resident. And I'd like to examine this proposal in the light of representation by elected members. I did my own back of the envelope calculations on population and divisions, and I assumed that county division lines would be used as the division lines, and I assumed 3 councillors per division or ward or whatever these things end up being called. But it seemed a very unacceptably high figure, the ratio of residents, elected members. And of course, any two-way split would be even worse. The 3x3 works much better than this point of view. And I would suggest that, in fact, 4 members per division would be a more suitable number than 3. It would bring us down to something close to what we enjoy at the moment. But this would mean that if we go for the 3x3 option, this would be 88 members, which is relatively light, but manageable. 2x2 would be impossible. And regardless of the number of members in the Assembly, there will be more work for these new councils. It's more both in the quantity and in the nature of the work, because they will be faced with tasks which are currently handled by the county. Highways, for example, or SEN. We may want to recommend that a caseworker per division is appointed as an assistant. The other point that I'd like to make with regard to representation is the size, the geographical size of a two-way split. At the moment, county has to have daytime meetings. This would probably be the case with a two-way split, whether it's north-south or east-west. This means that the number of potential representatives of the people, of our residents, is reduced. It'll make it very difficult for women with children or working age candidates in employment to become councillors. The 3x3 offers a much more practical solution and increases the number of potential. So for these reasons, if for no other, I'm very happy to endorse this 3x3 proposal, and I hope everyone will do the same. And if it is accepted, I'd like to make another proposal that the district, by the unitary authority in which this district will find itself, be renamed Mercia Central, in recognition of the part played by Tamworth and Lichfield in history. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the officers for drawing together what is a really quite remarkable document in terms of its clarity and ability to made our jobs this evening. I think it's worth mentioning at this stage a few things that we're not necessarily here to debate this evening, which are very pertinent in the context of the proposal. Because we're not here to debate the fact that this policy in the whole risks resulting in a reduction of local representation. That having fewer councillors per population, larger warding, risks elected members becoming more distant from the people who put us there, and risks losing the detailed local knowledge that I think most of us here in this, all of us, enjoy at this stage. This risks widening a democratic deficit. I know that members on the other benches have referred to at some length, which I think we're getting better at closing here. But this proposal, in the main, risks smaller towns or more rural areas losing influence, an increased centralisation in those decision-making bodies, and a loss of identity for those smaller towns, areas, as boundaries are blurred with mergers. This proposal poses an existential threat to some of those treasured local assets and events that we have right here in Lichfield, and I'm sure exist across the country. Those assets given for the benefit of the community, managed by us for their interest, thinking particularly of Beacon Park at this, but also the events that make this such a great district to live in and which this council administers. Proms, food festivals, and things such as the replacement of the leisure centre, which we took enormously seriously, but may not have been treated with similar significance by a larger authority. And Councillor Ashton has made my point for me very well, that this wider proposal risks reducing the accessibility for people to be councillors. I was thinking particularly of full-time employees. I walked into this meeting with a minute spare this evening. Daytime meetings, larger warding, greater travel times certainly risk making this unmanageable for the working population. And I certainly would find myself in a position where I think I'd find it impossible to serve on the successor authority. But Chair, what we are here to talk about is this proposal, which is of a smaller size and scale, but still meets that 300,000 residents, which has been identified as the lower limit by the central government. It still delivers the economies of scale that are enjoyed by larger authorities, but it preserves those distinct local identities of the three smaller councils that would form the successor authority. It keeps the decision makers closer to local communities, which means that local services and assets will be protected and managed by people who know them and who love them. And it maintains a close accountability with better continuity of local services, especially where, as in this proposal, some shared services are already in place. There are already things happening where we understand each other and work together well. Yeah, this proposal is also founded upon a sound evidence base, and I'm not going to take council through the papers this evening. There is detailed local consultation that has taken place here, including an incredibly well attended event at the George Hotel, which the leader led, but other local engagement with business and with residents that I've seen certainly a number of people engage with, certainly on social media. But most importantly, this proposal works for me on geographical ground, because it unifies three largely rural councils, southeast of Staffordshire, who already have shared priorities, shared services. It recognises the peculiar demographic, particularly of our working age population. And I was particularly struck when I was first elected, quite a long time ago now, when I was told that 40% of our working age population looked to the north, 40% looked to the south, and only about 20% work here in the district. And so that split with the north-south split that had already clearly existed here in this district, I think is quite clearly reflected with our shared demographics with the neighbouring authorities and with the proposal that's before us tonight. And most importantly, Chair, I think it's not built on some strange idea, which may make sense on a PricewaterhouseCoopers spreadsheet somewhere, to divide this county in east and west. Largely because simply the eastern proposal is simply too large. There are 690,000 residents, which far exceeds the upper limit set for us by government. And there are just too few shared priorities between the likes of Kinver and Stoke and Lichfield and Tamworth. We just look in opposite directions. I thank my colleagues for their well-reasoned speeches. I have heard some very well-reasoned speeches here this evening. There are a few points. Sorry, Steve. There are a few points I think it's worth making in rebuttal or clarification. Firstly, on the issue of devolution. For me, Chair, devolution has always meant devolving power away from the centre and not taking it up from district into larger authorities. And so I would have grave concerns, Chair, about the ability of some of the smaller and more rural parishes to step up to what is potentially being expected from them. The City Council and Burntwood Town Council may. They are well-equipped and well-run authorities. I say that without any political bias at all. But that would simply then concentrate powers in the larger settlement areas and risks failing the rurals. And I saw a proposal that the interests of those communities could be met by a wider steering group, which frankly for me, Chair, looks an awful lot like a district council. I also have to disagree with my friend who leads the opposition, who suggested that boroughs carrying significant debt are potentially a risk here. Those boroughs consistently have made poor development investment choices, but are very much minority. The majority of authorities are at shire, district, and at borough level are extremely well run and have managed to avoid those. And so, Chair, I give that submission very limited weight. I'm also, I'm afraid, not sure I can agree with Councillor Bragg's characterisation of decision-making being closer to the community with this proposal. Here in Lichfield, we are delivering amazing things for the 8.7 pence per resident average. That risks being diluted by this becoming part of a larger authority. And I frankly have to say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But I think I have little choice with this being quite a government policy. Chair, I was looking forward to the impassioned defence of the county's position, and I'm sorry to say I didn't hear it. But on the issue of financial sustainability, the figures are in the report. This is a financially sustainable proposal as assessed by the independent auditors KPMG, and those numbers are set out from pack page 169. Yeah, this is not necessarily what we want or what we need. This country faces far more significant challenges, and this feels a little bit like an own goal or a red herring, but it is nevertheless what we are landed with. The proposal before us is the best reasoned, best costed, and best argued proposal I think I've seen among the number of submissions that I've read. This is the best option which serves our businesses and our residents, and I will commend it to.
Thank you, Chair. In my opinion, the best option for local government reorganisation is for it not to happen at all. But if it does go ahead, Chair, then this is the best proposal we've got in front of us. It makes democracy closer to our residents, and I think that's the most important thing. Residents are our presiding principle in this. We've got support from local MPs, parishes, largely cross-party support in this House. Not sure where the Greens sit on it, but I think we know where our colleague from Reform sits, but I'm not so sure after his speech, but more on that shortly. I agree, actually, Councillor Ashton, you brought the point up about unitary authorities creating what I would call full-time councillors. The point of a councillor is we're meant to be board members looking after the interests of our residents and coming together at this board meeting that we call full council to discuss how we spend taxpayers' money. And if we can't have full-time workers like teachers and lawyers and doctors and nurses as councillors, then what's the point of having a councillor? We may as well all just be full-time politicians, and that's not the point of being a local councillor, in my opinion. We've had a lot of thanks tonight to the staff, and I echo that. It's a fantastic report. It's really clear. It's a compelling argument. But I'd also like to take a moment to think about how the staff might be feeling putting this report together, and even the staff behind the scenes. I heard earlier from a senior officer saying in the corridor to a colleague, I was earwigging their conversation, saying that staff are walking on eggshells at the moment. They've got uncertainty about their futures, and they're putting together reports and proposals that might put them out of a job. I think that's a real point that we should bear in mind when we're voting for this, and I'll be voting for it with a heavy heart because of that. Consultation is really important. I think we've done an excellent job combining with our nearby authorities and our neighbours consulting on this. Just looking at the numbers in this report on 3.18, 16,700 respondents. That's a large amount of people. I think as politicians, if that amount of people came out to vote for us, we'd be really happy. 66% said they prefer this option of two smaller councils in the south as opposed to one. And 75% of those were in Lichfield district. And that's really important that we speak to and listen to our local residents. If you go deeper into the numbers in 3.19, the top three priorities for new unitary councils identified by our residents were: number one, keeping services based on local needs, 73%. Local councillors that listen, 63%. Imagine that. And saving money while keeping services running, 54%. So nobody that I can see has gone, I really want a local council that fits numbers on a spreadsheet. They want a local council that is acceptable to them. Their front desk is near where they live. They can speak to and know who their local councillor is, and they know where to come when they've got a problem. Speaking of problems, let's talk about the county council proposal. It just doesn't work for local residents anywhere, I think, but especially here in Lichfield District. It splits the county in half, east and west, although strangely Stoke would fall into the east, despite being more west than Cannock. I can't quite work out the map. I don't know why they've done that. It would also see planning decisions in Stowe made in Stoke-on-Trent over an hour away. It just can't be right. So what they've done in their wisdom, of course, is they've gone to an accountancy firm and they've asked the accountancy firm to put numbers on a spreadsheet. And what came out? Numbers. But strangely enough, they haven't actually spoken to residents. In fact, I asked the deputy leader of the county who's looking after LGR how much consultancy they've done. And wait for it, they've done none. They haven't spoken to a single resident. Oh, actually, I do them a disservice. They've had one focus group. So when I asked him why they haven't spoken to people, and this is what he told me in a public meeting, he said, oh, there's too much consultation. People have had enough of consultation. Those are the words he said to me. Interesting. Okay. Well, I'm maybe old school. I think we should speak to the residents to vote for us. And they've told us that they don't like that proposal and they prefer this one. Lichfield District residents would shoulder the burden of Stoke's debt. And speaking about debt, I can't sit down without speaking about Councillor Wallens. So you tell us that we'll be bankrupt from day one. From day one. Blimey. I've got no idea accountancy was another one of your skills. That's strange because the proposal that we've put forward has been worked on by KPMG. So I think they probably know a bit about accountancy. They've not said we're going to be bankrupt in day one. I would actually prefer our option and risk Councillor Wallens' bankruptcy on day one, then take the debt of Stoke. I mean, that's the option I would take. This is, of course, the party Reform, whose deputy leader at the county council, still peddling the, I'm going to generously say, factually inaccurate statement that Lichfield District Council is looking to join Birmingham City Council. A fact that Councillor Wallens has repeated regularly on social media. Cynics would say it's a lie, but I'm not cynic. I'd say they're just repeatedly misspeaking. So I think this type of scaremongering is not becoming of councillors. We should be abiding by the Nolan principles and we should be doing what's right for the residents. If it means that we are turkeys voting for Christmas and lots of us are going to lose our status as councillors, well, so be it. I'd rather vote for the right proposal than vote for the proposal that's going to put our residents in jeopardy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I mentioned the last time I addressed this council that after 30 years of trying to get elected here, it's somewhat ironic to be voting within 30 days to abolish my seat. But I too would like to first of all congratulate Councillor Pullen and Councillor Woodward and Councillor Ray on the collegiate way in which they've worked together to bring this proposal forward. And I think I would like to add my voice to congratulate our officer team for what I'm going to say is the brilliant work they've done in this proposal, which is lucid, coherent and costed. So we know that we're not going to be bankrupt on day one. This has, in my view, been a demonstration par excellence of how local government should work. We have been collegiate. It is evidence-based, and above all, it has put the community first. The level of engagement is one of the things that has most impressed me. We've had 16,800 residents who have taken part in the consultation in something that essentially local government doesn't usually bring about great enthusiasm. You don't pop into the pub and say, let's have a chat about local government, do you? But we've got 16,800 people taking part. Councillor Pullen has taken an enormous amount of time to go and meet with our parish council, something that I know is very dear to Councillor Woodward's heart. And I'm proud to say tonight that Olderboss Parish Council, which incidentally I might not have mentioned as the best kept village in Staffordshire, but Orange Parish Council is supporting this proposal along with Bradley Parish Council, because I think that might have been missed out of the report actually. But congratulations to Councillor Pullen on doing that. And he's done the public meetings like the one at the George that's been referred to. I was stopped in the street by someone who actually said to me, I want to talk to you about local government reorganisation in the streets. In my profession, it's usually I want to complain about your bill. But I think this level of public engagement is quite extraordinary. And therefore, I'm actually genuinely sorry to say that that spirit of partnership contrasts sharply with the approach of our county councillor, as Councillor Farrell has explained to us, who appear to have hired consultants to design the most bureaucratic and unworkable scheme imaginable, I think in the hope that they can put that forward to government, and government are going to say, that's terrible, we're not going to do that, we're going to abandon our policy. Reform obviously have much more confidence in the common sense of central government than I do. It's a very dangerous route to follow, a very dangerous one indeed. So tonight, councillors, we see a clear distinction between community engagement versus political cynicism. Through practical localism as described by Councillor Ashton, Councillor Woodward, and many others, and Councillor Strachan, who've talked about keeping local government local. So we have localism versus Machiavellian manoeuvring. What is being proposed is a bigger council, but I don't believe it's an overblown one. It's large enough to deliver efficiently, yet small enough to keep decisions close to the people it affects, because as many other people have said already, Mr. Chairman, local government should remain local. I will support the proposal.
Hughes.
Thank you very much. I will just echo support for all the brilliant and eloquent speeches already. I have one frivolous point of information or correction, and then what may be a naive but serious question. The first is to correct, I think, Councillor Farrell, that Lichfield City Council has to get the credit for seeking Lichfield Birmingham, because I think it's a result of our joining for commercial and very sensible reasons, Lichfield, Birmingham, Tamworth, Cannock and Lichfield branch of the not the what was the Chamber of Commons, but the Chamber of Commerce. So I want to take the credit for Lichfield City rather than Lichfield District. And as my leader of my party, his father was a toolmaker. I occasionally mentioned I was a historian, and I should point out, because I think there are people here who would want to see that actually Lichfield City, for most of the last 500 years, has not been part of Staffordshire, but has been a city and county of itself, as at least one or two sheriffs will say. But my question is actually, and I might be missing something, is in this brilliant, and that's a genuine question, one of these district councils, the largest, South East Staffordshire, doesn't seem to be yet on board with it. And is that the case, or is it just they're not openly on board with it? But I might have missed something there. So that's my question.
Dee.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will absolutely say from the start, I am absolutely supportive of this. Ever since being elected as a councillor, one of the things that I've always found difficult is how confusing tiers of parish councillor, a district councillor, a county councillor. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Joe Bloggs doesn't care. They just want a councillor they can come to and talk to about their issues. And how we do this at this moment in time is confusing. I must spend half of my casework forwarding to my county councillor. Do I know it's dealt with? No, but I forwarded it on. And having that sort of localism is massively important. Having Mr. and Mrs. Joe Bloggs being able to come to a singular person for the important things and getting an answer is important. having a councillor that tells them it's not me, go to someone else, I'm not that councillor, makes things very, very difficult. I've always believed that we needed to get rid of a tier of council. However that was done, we are now being told. And I'm supportive of it. I think it's a good idea. When you come to the proposals that are put forward and what we need to support today, our proposal from Lichfield District Council is very simply the best proposal out of all of them. I am absolutely believe that local councils should be local. And if you make it geographically so big, you can't see the other end of your council from one to the other, it is far too big. It's important that we have ties to who we're going with. And we have got ties to the two councils that we're looking to merge with. I had an eye operation in Burton Hospital. We go shopping in Tamworth. They are the places that are local to us. So why would we not look at that? That is a sensible option to do. I am scared that if you do an east-west, a north-south, that we become so big, we do become the county council. And by that, what I mean is a council that is so disenfranchised locally that nothing actually really gets done visibly. And that's what we see from our county council at the moment, have done ever since I've been in politics. We've got this county council and all I spend most of my time doing is complaining to them about services not being done. They're so far away. Where do you go to? Who do you speak to? Currently, I have a county councillor that serves me that lives 22 miles away. How is that local? It's not. It doesn't work. It needs to be done better. I understand that we need to have a council that can cope. And this proposal shows that council can cope. And I think that there's a saying that's very simple to this. This proposal makes us a council that would be big enough to cope, but small enough to care. And that is what our residents want. So I'm going to be supporting it.
Thank you, Chair. I love how we all get very protective about some of the places where we are. And of course, Hammerwich Parish Council did their contribution to the report as well. But for me, that is just an absolute indictment of why we got elected in the first place, why we wanted to stand as local councillors. And keeping that local democracy, for me, is absolutely paramount. So whilst we're referring this as the best option, is it the most perfect option? No, in my opinion, but it is the preferred option and certainly the one that I'll be supporting. On the issue of three-tier authorities and different levels, then don't forget we're going to have a strategic authority, a unitary council and parishes. And as I started off with, being able to make sure that we know what we're doing in each of those is one thing, let alone what residents are doing. But as it stands at the moment, I don't believe that if somebody gets in touch with here, we have the front door and then people get in touch and then they're directed where they needed to go to. So part of me still thinks, why are we doing LGR in the first place? But equally, I do support the fact that we need to be the masters of our own destiny in what comes next. So whether it's replacing 3 tiers, potentially with 3 tiers, I'll leave that one out there. Making sure that we know what parishes are designed to do, because goodness me, if you want to make a difference locally, that's where you need to go. But also in making sure that residents are absolutely clear about where that support goes. Now, I too, same as what Councillor Stevenson has mentioned, have been met with people when you're walking around say, oh, can I have a word with you about local government reorganisation? And said, what is that going to mean for X, Y and Z locally? Now, to me, that is probably the first time on this particular nature that that's happened. And the fact that so many thousands of people have taken the time does mean that it's something that they care about out in the communities and also why we care about it too. So whilst I think that there are still some significant questions that need to be clarified as we go through to the next stage of this part, that we are making sure that all of the people who need to be involved have been, and I don't see that being the case elsewhere. I also hope that lessons have been learned where we know where other authorities are vested to make sure that some of those ills have been solved before it all goes ahead also. I'll leave it at that. Thanks, Chair.
Chair, thank you. I just wanted to double check that no one else wanted to speak on this first. It's been really heartening to hear such a healthy debate about such a really important issue, and it does feel slightly strange walking into a chamber knowing that you're coming to vote for a proposal which is going to abolish our roles. However, clearly, no doubt, whatever comes in the future in terms of local government reorganisation, we will all work together to make the very best of it. Just in kind of summing up, Chair, I'd like to just touch on a couple of points, if I may, that have been raised, and my colleagues have touched on a number of the issues that I'd like to issue. So I won't go over them again. I think just as a point of good order, Chair, I should point out to Councillor Ray, and just for the benefit of everyone in the chamber, I think it'd be fair to say that Stoke-on-Trent would tolerate our position. I don't think they're formally supporting it, but they certainly would tolerate our proposal. Their preference at this stage, which will go to government, is for the north-south split. And as already said, my personal view is that almost 650,000 people is simply too big for a local government unit to operate. Chair, I would like to thank everyone for their support from across the chamber, mostly. To Councillor Hughes's point, East Staffordshire are not on board with this proposal. They would prefer a southern unitary as well, and South Staffordshire are on board with it. 3 and 3. I take it, Chair, as well, and it's really heartening to see. It's really hard to get a really dry subject over to our residents. We all know that local government actually seems to have hit a note and resounded with our residents. So much so that clearly it was on the mind of the County Council Cabinet today. To hear Lichfield's name be spoken about again and again and again, and our proposal to be talked about at such length, even though it is a joint proposal with South Staffs and Tamworth, to hear it be spoken about repeatedly tells me that we've done our job in this chamber of ensuring that people know what we stand for and what we're fighting for here in Lichfield District. I would say, my colleagues have talked about reforms proposal. I think, Chair, it's slightly unfair to call it reforms proposal. I think it'd be more fair to call it PwC's proposal, which has been copied and pasted. And Councillor Wallens, just a brief history lesson, and Councillor Hughes, keep me honest on this. I'm not going to go back to the 10th century when Staffordshire was created or was in its nascent form. But several years ago, County Council Network, which is a lobbying group for county councils, commissioned an organisation called PricewaterhouseCoopers, otherwise known as PwC, to commission a report to lobby government, the incoming Labour government, on what the future of unitary government or unitary local government should look like. Funnily enough, that PwC report, commissioned by the County Council, said that unitary councils, roughly about the size of county councils, would be the ideal size for future unitaries. What a surprise. That number from PwC then made it into the Labour government's white paper, which then in turn found its way through to the criteria which have been provided to county councils up and down the country and to us of what a good unitary should look like. Chairman, reform claimed to be on the side of the working man. I hate to say it, but on this occasion, they're on the side of the Labour government and are dancing to their tune. Here at Lichfield District, Chair, we have looked at those criteria. We have absolutely looked at which of those criteria are important to us, but also which criteria are important to our residents, and haven't just said, yes, we will tick the boxes that a consultancy firm have given us to tick. What we've said is what matters to our residents. And Chair, again, it was raised earlier on about the DCN. So the DCN, and for absolute transparency, they're a lobbying group as well that lobby on district council behalf. But they've done their own research there. And what their research says, and this is from publicly available data, it says that correlation between population size and spend per resident is weak. To the extent that there is a correlation, there appears to be a tipping point at around 350,000 population. beyond which this threshold, councils typically spend more per resident than those below it. It goes on to say that larger councils appear to have been more likely to experience financial instability that is sufficiently serious to require exceptional financial support. It also goes on to say, in terms of service delivery, that projected outcomes are better at the median population of existing unitary councils, 275,000, than at 500,000. And more importantly, Chair, and I'll finish on this point because this is the item that will matter most to our residents. Larger councils charge higher levels of council tax. Thank you, Chair. I so move. Can I please ask for a named vote? Thank you.
Cullen. Now, vote on the.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask councillors please to indicate if you are for, against when I call out your name? Councillor Anketel, Councillor Ashton, Councillor Ball, Councillor Benavicius, Councillor Bennion, Councillor Braga, Councillor Checkland, Councillor Cleverly, Councillor Cross, Councillor D. Ennis, Councillor L. Ennis, Councillor Evans, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Galvin, Councillor Harvey Coggins, Councillor Henshaw, Councillor Hill, Councillor Holland, Councillor Hughes, Councillor Marshall, Councillor Mears, Councillor Norman, Councillor Pullen, Councillor Ray, Councillor Rushton, Councillor Salter, Councillor Sylvester Hall, Councillor A. Smith, Councillor Stevenson, Strachan, Councillor P. Taylor, Councillor S. Taylor, Councillor Trent, Councillor Vernon, Councillor Wallens, Councillor Warfield, Councillor Whitehouse, Councillor Woodward, and Councillor Yates.
The recommendations are carried with 38 in favour and 1 against. This brings our live broadcast to an end. Thank everyone this evening.